Board. So we're live. I know the name of this is off the record, but we are on the record today. Mike, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Casey, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, hello to our audience out there, lovely off the record community. For those of you that may be new to joining us, my name is Casey Lett. I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategy at 352. We're an innovation and growth firm. We help mid-market and enterprise companies find and engage new customers, pioneer new ventures, and build new products, services, and business models. All of that stuff is really freaking hard. So we created a community of colleagues, commiserators, depending on which day, to come together and talk about the beauty and the craziness that is innovation. Today we have Mike Todasco joining us. Mike, I'm thrilled to have you. You are the Senior Director of Innovation at PayPal. And it's my understanding from all of our pre-call and getting to know each other that you've done some amazing work creating and driving a culture of innovation. So welcome. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me. Yes, look, I mean, we are a company of innovators, but we think that every company is a company of innovators. You just have to give them tools. And I'm hoping that's everybody watching today will be able to take a few things away from that and be able to do it in their own firms.
Couldn't agree more. For getting us started, I like to kick it over to you because there's nothing more awkward than me telling the audience who you are when you're on the line. So I want you to give us a bit of your background and what led you to your role today.
Yeah, for starters, I'm a dad because literally my daughter just came and brought an iPad over to me. Like she wants me to do something. So but I'm not sure what that is.
How old is your daughter?
Cindy, why don't you just come over here and say hi instead? So Cindy is 6 and she just ran away. She's getting stage fright now.
Cindy, welcome.
So anyway, she is, so no, I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And so, yes, in times of COVID, I think it's always you're a parent first because you're surrounded by children at all times, which is great and awesome in many ways. And you know, of course, this is like a little crazy and frustrating too. I started off my career as an accountant, which I always love to say because whenever people think about innovation, of course, the first thing that pops in their mind is, well, he must have started as an accountant. And so I started as an accountant at GE, and I did that for a few years, moved into different strategy roles, started my own business at some point. And about 9 years ago, I joined PayPal in what was the mobile payments team at that time. It was this own little kind of niche, fringy team, if you will. We, as a company, did about $750 million of payments in 2010. And to put that in perspective of where we're at today, it's hard to say because we've seen such explosive growth during where we're at with coronavirus now, but it's somewhere probably, I don't know, 500-600 times where that was, not percent, but times the growth in mobile payments. So it's just been an amazing ride to be part of this. I've had a lot of different roles in PayPal, mostly in product marketing, product management, analytics, a function called product launch. And about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, when we separated from eBay, I took on the opportunity to kind of help define what innovation was going to be for PayPal as a standalone company. And that led to the creation of our innovation lab. And I've been doing that job ever since.
Excellent. And now the Innovation Lab, are you near the headquarters? Are you all separate? Talk to us about just general proximity pre-COVID. We recognize it.
Yeah, let's do pre-COVID first, and then we'll talk post. Yes, pre-COVID, so I was in our headquarters. I'm in beautiful San Jose, California. We have innovation labs, physical locations all over the globe. We have one in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have one in Bangalore and Chennai in India. We have one in Singapore. And we actually are just in the process of, and we have just opened in the last week or two, one in Shanghai. Shanghai is the one office where we actually have people in the world right now. It's amazing how how things change so quickly in this world that we're in. So they are physical locations where anybody across PayPal, any function, any background can come in at any time to learn about the future, to learn about our customers, to learn about different things that have nothing to do with PayPal, or at least nothing that we could directly associate with PayPal. And they're really special places that we have, which frankly has been hard to replicate in a digital only world that we're living in now. Because there are so many interactions that happen in these labs, just so many random encounters. I don't know if anybody in your audience has ever had the pleasure of being at the Pixar campus. It's just up the road from us here in Emeryville, California. And, Steve Jobs famously kind of designed what that was going to look like. And it was all about the random encounters and to have that. And so to have this place, which looks different than every other room in PayPal, which is open to everyone at any time, and which in at least a little microcosm just has people with just a level of curiosity come in to be able to do more, to ask questions, like that is what we're trying to create. Because ultimately at PayPal, we are building this company of innovators. We're building this company where we don't really have a centralized innovation and R&D structure. And with that, what that means is that everybody in the company needs to innovate. And the only way for us to succeed as a company is when everybody is innovating out there. When you have 20,000 plus people who are laser focused on their customers, but also thinking, well, what's the thing that's they're going to need in the next 2, 5, 10 years? I think that's extremely important because while, today, I don't even know what our stock is at today, but we're somewhere around $225 billion in market cap now. Look, we're only a couple technological shifts from being zero. And we have to be constantly paranoid about that as a company because we won't survive. We don't deserve to survive if we're not serving our customers. And that's why we need to be a company full of innovators.
I love so much about that. We can unpack several of those sentences. Is Cindy joining us again? Tell her to come on.
Sorry. Yes. I don't know. She's like literally hiding by me now.
I love it.
I will just say, Sydney, do whatever you like. All right. Well, she just has carte blanche from me to do God knows what.
Right. You may take the car for a run, but you all right. So talk to me about how you all define innovation, because you said a company of innovators, you said customer, thinking about the future, customer problems. I'd love to dig in because I think innovation can mean everything and nothing. So I want to really hone in on what we mean there.
Okay, my shorthand is for innovation. I actually like to not define it if possible. I will define it for you, but I will tell you why I don't. Because in part, I sort of like the concept of innovation being generic because it is going to mean something to different people in the company. It's going to mean something very different. And that's what I want, because if you are a designer or an engineer or an attorney, or you work on our supply chain team or whatever it is, innovation is probably going to mean something a little bit different to you. And that is probably okay. Ultimately, how I look at innovation, it starts with a customer problem and basically finding a new solution for that. It's as simple as that. But I mean, there's two parts for that. Is a problem. Really, if it's not actually solving anything, if it's not something that actually people want or people can use, then I don't think it's a true innovation. And then there's the uniqueness aspect of that. Like, is this actually new? Is this actually something that people haven't seen, or more often than not, innovations are just putting pieces of things together in a new and unique way. But that's how I look at innovation.
I love it. So we're not over prescriptive on what innovation has to mean inside the company. We recognize that we all are unique. We have unique expertise. So it's going to mean different things. But what it does need to the commonality is that it's a new, unique way of solving customer problems. Must have
Yes.
a problem, and ideally should be new and unique. I love
Yes.
it.
Yes. You
I,
say much better than I do, Casey.
hey, it's only what, 9/11 in California, so I've had a little time. I've had some more coffee. Okay, so let's talk about, I think that when you're infusing a culture of innovation, and PayPal has been born in the digital era, and I think that when we look at innovation, especially across typically legacy enterprises, there's a lot of mindset to overcome. There's a lot of operations, and that change can be difficult. It can be expensive, to even just be digital. So you guys have been born in the digital age. Do you feel like when you broke away from PayPal or from eBay, and you guys started this innovation lab, do you feel like it was really a change within the company, or was it just an enhancement? I'm curious of how you look at that, because you are a newer
Yeah.
organization in the grand scheme.
Yeah. I would say it's really an evolution. And I mean, and when it's an evolution, I think these are going to be most set up for success. Look, the last thing that I would ever want for anybody to do is to say, hey, PayPal is really good at innovation. And thus, I'm just going to take that PayPal model and I'm going to drop it into my company. I don't care what company you are, it's not going to work. And it's not because PayPal's more awesome or more special or more whatever. It's not. We're just PayPal and we're different. And just like how any other's company innovation model wouldn't work in ours, like all of these entities are unique animals. And I think what people really need to do is just to kind of pick and choose, and most importantly, just test and test and fail. And like, we could go through failure stories at some point here, Casey. Like I have plenty of them, of just things we've tried on the innovation team that just haven't worked. But ultimately, that's how you find out that stuff does work. So, I think it's really important to just take all of these pieces, and to just try something and put it together. But it has to be true to who you are as a company. I mean, so we're about 21 years old now as a company. And if you go back to the early PayPal days, you had, Reid Hoffman and Chad Hurley and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and, and Keith Raboy and all of these people, henceforth known as the PayPal Mafia. And this was kind of like the DNA of our company. It's a bunch of, you know, renegade Silicon Valley types that all, created this and then moved on to create YouTube and LinkedIn and SpaceX and all these other crazy things as part of it. Like, they're long gone, but like there is something of that legacy that does live on in the company. I mean, I've been here for, I guess, half of PayPal's life, just about. And while they were all long gone, even by the time I got here, like, you still kind of feel something for that, and it carries on. And look, these things can morph and evolve. And look, what senior leadership does has a huge impact on how an organization will behave. But like, I think for anybody as a leader, you need to identify what are your core competencies and what are your skill sets. What are your employees' passions? Like, why do they join your company versus something else? Is it because you pay more? Is it because you're the only game in town? Is it because you have a unique mission that people are bought in for? Hopefully it's the latter, because I think when you are in the latter camp, you're going to be able to get a lot more out of your employees, frankly, in any other situation. But ultimately, this is just what an innovation culture is. It's a big Frankenstein's monster of parts that you are just sewing together, piece by piece, to build something that hopefully in the end, when you give it a little spark, it is actually able to walk and murmur. I've never used that. I've never used that analogy before. I didn't know where I was going midway through that analogy, but I'm like, I'm going with it.
Yeah, we went down that line. Real-time feedback, guys. You can hit the chat if it might need
Yeah.
to be said in the next talk.
Yeah. Tell me if I should never use the Frankenstein metaphor again. I don't know.
All right. Well, James Bond says that analogy went places. So one, great. Two, you got approval. So
Is this actually James Bond we have on here? This is
I
impressive.
know
I
this James
know.
Bond, and his real name is James Bond. So
Really? Wow. Hi, James.
that in itself makes them pretty cool. All right. So I love the philosophy of saying, listen, there's a ton of toolkits out there. I think if you go to any organization, look at, theory, et cetera, there's a ton of assets, tools, methodologies in use. Every organization has to be unique to themselves, understand their culture, their legacy, why people are there, and then build a culture of innovation that feels authentic, because then it sustains. I'm
Mhm.
curious, when we talk about, I would like to talk about, you mentioned mission, and if you can get employees bought into the mission. I wonder if you can share a bit about how PayPal looks at its mission, and then how you as the innovation culture also are building that mission. Is that the same? Does it vary? I'd love to get into that.
Yeah. So when Dan Schulman became the president CEO of PayPal back in 2014, Dan brought in a different mission than where we were, I think, when I started at PayPal. Like to be honest, in the first few years of the company, and I'm not at all being disparaging to our senior leadership. I loved our leadership at the time, but I think it wasn't exactly clear what our mission was, other than to provide payments and grow. And we were doing that. I mean, we were doing all that stuff. Um, Dan brought in this kind of new lens for us as a company that fit in really well, and frankly got us very excited, and is really setting our path to get like the next billion customers using our products. And that is really expensive to be poor in the world. And that PayPal is uniquely positioned to serve the financially underserved around the world. Um, and that's true. We are in 200, countries and markets all around the globe. We have this, global reach that really no other payments company really has. And as part of that, I think we're very uniquely positioned to solve this. And this is something that Dan, our CEO, is extremely passionate about. And this is something that he talks about internally and externally every time he has the opportunity to. And it's something that all of our employees rally around. It's something that is bigger than us. It is bigger than any one person. But we know that with our 20,000 plus employees banding together to do this, like we really can solve one of society's wrongs as part of that. And I think that's really inspiring. It helps us attract talent. This is what I was getting to before. Like, yeah, you just pay people money versus you actually have this driven mission that people can rally around. Like, that's the type of company that you want to be. So there's that. That's kind of like, the mission vision side of things for PayPal Inc. as a whole. Then taking it down to innovation. We have four key tenets that we look for in our employees within the company and expect. It is inclusion, wellness, collaboration, and innovation. So like these are the four things that any PayPal employee will be able to easily rattle off and what that means to them individually. And so whenever I talk about innovation, it ties into those other things as well. So when I think and when we think about innovation, first step for me is actually building into our employees. It is that every employee within our company has something greater in themselves that they did not even know was possible. That sounds really corny and really cheesy, but hear me out here, because even before I had this job, I was leading a product launch team, and there were about 10 people on my team at the time. And I inherited them. And when I was kind of doing my first discussions with all of them, I ended our first interview, our first one-on-one, by asking them the question, do you think of yourself as being a innovative person? I might have said creative. Creative and innovative, I sometimes use interchangeably. Half the people said yes, half the people said no. And for the half the people that said no, that kind of drove me crazy. I was like, that's not true. You are. And like, it was my goal to get you to recognize that. Because look, evolutionarily, like, this is how we got to where we are as a species today. Like it or not, like, human beings are extremely innovative. And especially when there are constraints put upon us, like, we can do amazing things. Again, right, wrong, or indifferent, like, we have reshaped this planet. Again, not always in the best ways, but in many ways we have. And no other species has been able to ever do something like that. And that comes from human innovation to be able to do that. And it's not just like, the Da Vinci's or the Galileos or Marie Curie's or whoever that are those great innovators. Like, it is all of us that have it in us. So like, I just, as a manager, I kind of took it upon myself of like, how do I get people to recognize that they have this within themselves? Because I do believe, like, once they can actually see, like, yes, I can be a great innovator, however it is that I personally define innovation, that's going to give that person a whole different outlook on how they see themselves, on how they interact with others, and just the confidence that they have in work, the confidence they have at home and everywhere else in their lives. So that to me is first and foremost, to be able to just build into the employees and just to get them to see like they are capable than much more than they ever thought of.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondary to that is like, when you have a whole bunch of employees, when you got 20,000 people doing that, you then have an opportunity where you could then do that for your customers. When you got all of these confident, robust innovators who can do this stuff, making these bigger and better solutions for our customers, that is then tying into the holistic PayPal Inc. mission of serving the financially underserved even more so. You hear that time and time again. We're here to serve the financially underserved. Well, I'm an amazing innovator. Eventually, those two things are going to come together, and you are building great innovations to be able to serve that very population.
Mm-hmm. I love the fact of talking with, I mean, some of the things I'll play back here, and maybe this will tee up some conversation in the Q&A, is that start with your people. You have, I mean, that's one of your greatest assets. If you have 20,000 employees, that's a massive workforce to go forth and do great things. So the scale of that, if you can make them each, 5%, 10% better, that's exponential. So starting there, sounds like you're embedding a deep curiosity and care. Curiosity to want to know the world around them, to question how things are done, to challenge and do that with intention. Talk a lot about that. We talk about that a lot. You talked about, you mentioned something around the creativity, and we talk about constraints drive creativity. So if you help people have the tools, the frameworks, you can then allow them to focus their creativity in the best places. And that's going back to your mission of bringing financial, options to the financially underserved. And I think that's a pretty noble thing to be a part of. And I think when you tap into people's hearts and minds, you generally are able to drive much more impactful results. I'm going to challenge a little bit. You're a business at the end of the day. You're responsible for delivering return. So all of this sounds wonderful, right? Like, I am here for people. I'm here for culture. I'm here for the noble cause. How do you track the effectiveness? How do you measure what you all are doing so that it doesn't become a line item on a sheet, but it actually becomes a mechanism that is worth ongoing investment?
Look, the best way to do that is to not spend a lot of money, because when you're looking at measuring ROI, when your I is really small, then you don't need, the R has a little bit more of room to on that. So honestly, how we did this for really the first several years is I was the only innovation employee in a company of 20,000 people.
Mhm.
Um, so it was just me. And again, it's not like it's this huge thing now. There's basically two of us on the innovation side. So we've been able to prove out that ROI to get two people to cover the 20,000 plus employees now. But like that is the first thing that we do, because look, it is really hard, especially in our world, to prove out ROI. We're not like a 3M. So 3M kind of created the gold standard for R&D within companies as far as metrics. And that being what percentage of products came out in the last 5 years. And so they're constantly asking this question. Um, to ask that question at I wouldn't even know how to get to that question at PayPal. And even the things that we're doing within our innovation lab, like sometimes it's a feature that gets introduced into a product. Sometimes it's an idea and then the idea stops. And then all of a sudden that same thing emerges 6 or 9 months later, whatever it might be. Then how do you measure that? So look, and I'm a finance / accounting guy. So I get return on investments more than maybe most people without that background. So I really understand that. But everything that we've been doing and the structure that we have has been doing it just pure, scrappy, and minimalist. Because another thing that we are trying to drive home is that you don't need a lot of money to innovate.
Mm.
Look, I know of many companies. Look, most fintech companies are probably smaller than us, and I would say the vast majority of them probably have innovation teams that are much larger than us. I know this for certain. That doesn't give us the right to say that, hey, we need a bigger team or anything like that. Being scrappy, being cost effective is part of what we need to do as a company. And so given the fact that it is really hard to measure ROI, just keep that investment low. And more importantly, just start small. Like it drives me crazy when organizations, they say they want to go into something, and then, fine, like hire one person for that. So, I mean, like start small, experiment with these things, because you never know what is going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great insight, and interesting hearing it come from a company of your scale, because that's not usually the case. And I'd be interested to see what trends in corporate innovation happen with time. I want to answer one of the attendee questions. So, and
Sure.
this goes a bit into some of where you and I had talked before. If everyone is responsible for innovating, how do you determine where to focus your work, given all the inputs? And a build on that might be, that's yours specifically, but how do teams know they're working on the right things? And so, any thoughts there that we want to build on?
Yeah. So how do teams know that they are working on the right teams? So our teams that are delivering products for customers need to know and understand who their customers are. That's first and foremost. So they should be, on a monthly basis or whatever it might be, sitting down with those customers, understanding what their problems are. They should be deeply, deeply aware of who the customers that they are trying to serve are. As they're releasing product, they should be iterate. I mean, this is design thinking. This is
Right.
getting into a lot of those types of tools. But I mean, we absolutely use those. So I think it is important for them to be very focused on, are we serving our customer to what their needs are now, and also with forethought of like what it is for the future for them. So I think that's to answer the question of like the core delivery teams within PayPal,
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of taking a step back within the innovation lab where I see our opportunity. It is more so around where, bigger picture, where do we see the gaps?
Mm-hmm.
And we usually don't, we're kind of the one place in PayPal that doesn't look at things necessarily from a customer lens, but from a technological lens.
Okay.
Again, all of our technology teams shouldn't be focused on technology, but they should be focused on the customer.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. But we're kind of the one place where, do you know what? We're actually going to just see like, what are the emerging technologies out there? And what are the technologies that we see that may be disruptive. So it is working with our strategy teams. It is working with our senior product and engineering leaders, of course, as well. But like, where are the real opportunities out there where within PayPal, we're not doing much, and we feel we could be left behind, for the next mobile revolution or equivalent of whatever that might be. And so just some of those areas that we have kind of led the company on strategic experiments, if you will, have been areas like voice technology, augmented reality, blockchain, and we've even dabbled in robots a little bit within the company. And it's not saying that any one of those is necessarily going to be the next platform that is going to, be the mobile technology equivalent of the 2020s. But it is all areas where we, at least at the time, said within PayPal, we don't have enough expertise in this area. We think that there is something that we can, a journey that we can take the rest of the company on by giving training, by having speakers come in, by having this series where we're going to have people around the globe hacking on these new technologies, learning what's possible with a lens of their own customer using these new technologies, to just see what we can do. And that's the lens that we take as a lab. So it is very different from our day-to-day teams. But ultimately, it's coming together in spirit of the customer in the end.
I love that. So core teams, delivery teams, they are very much focused on their customer. And so they are they know them intimately. They're hyper focused on that. What are their problems, surfacing those, and then looking at new innovative ways or new unique ways to solve that. That's how you see innovation there. For you all, it is exploration and experimentation, developing points of view on emerging technology or emerging trends so that you as PayPal, an organization, are that much smarter, so that your teams don't have to go explore what voice is. They understand capabilities and points of view to see how it then ties into customer challenges. Is that fair to say?
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right, Casey. And let me even just add one point to that, because I do not want to make this sound like this is entirely a top-down model from an innovation lab standpoint, because it is not. It is, a lot of this comes from the bottom up. I mean, a lot of it is just what are the people who are, again, our engineers aren't just passionate about our customers. They are passionate about the technology as well. They're reading TechCrunch and they're reading all this other stuff to learn about whatever the new technologies are out there. And so I think it is really important to be serving that from the bottom up. One other thing we do within our innovation lab is we make it really clear, there is an idea portal we have in PayPal, and we have thousands of ideas that are submitted by any employee throughout the year. Everyone has access to do that. It is something that, all are aware of, and is also entirely searchable by the entire company as well. So anybody will be able to see any idea that has ever been submitted in that portal. As part of that process, we as an innovation team also say, if anybody wants to build any idea, like that is something that we are going to support. And I don't care if it even has anything to do with PayPal, anything to do with our customers. Frankly, the only requirement we have to support, and we get to talk about what it means to support an idea, but for us to support idea, basically all that you have to do as somebody within PayPal is you need to find a few other people who are crazy enough to go on this journey with you. If you can convince 3, 4, 5 other people to say, hey, I think that we need to build a modern day yoga mat with pressure sensitive technology so that, when I'm doing this, it's going to be communicating with my television set. And on my TV, it's going to then be able to adjust the position that I'm in. This is actually really good. I literally, sorry, I'm looking at a yoga mat, as you probably guessed. This is very much like the usual suspects. I'm Kaiser Soze. I'm just looking around the room, connecting things here. But like, seriously, if anybody wants to build this thing, go right ahead. Like I'll be your first customer.
Yep.
But no, but seriously, so you would then say, well, what the heck does that have to do with PayPal? And I would say probably nothing, and I don't exactly know. But go right ahead and build that. We will support you, meaning like, okay, like what will it actually take hardware wise to do this? It's probably going to take about, I don't know, $300, $400, $500 worth of materials to do that. So you probably already have a TV in your home. You're going to have a lot of this stuff with your phone already. Like, I'll buy that for you. I have no problem doing that. I'm going to hold you responsible for a stage gate process. I would like updates on that. I just want to make sure you're making progress. But go ahead and build this pressure sensitive yoga mat and let's see what happens. Because here's the thing. I mean, one, the 5 people who are building this crazy idea that has nothing to do with PayPal are going to learn a lot. They're going to not only learn how to build a yoga mat, but they're going to learn a lot about themselves. They're going to learn like, wow, I can take something from idea to creation. And I didn't know that that was possible. And for the $500 that we're going to spend for those 5 people, they're going to be able to then carry that back to their own teams and so forth to do that. And we're going to let them demo that product. And a whole bunch of other people on PayPal are going to see that and say like, wow, that's cool. I don't know what that has to do with payments either, but like that inspires me to do something else. And then there's going to be some crazy person in PayPal that says, oh yeah, I know what that has to do with payments. You can actually take that technology and tie that into, you know, a mat that goes in front of a point of sale system in a store. And we're going to use weight sensors and blah, 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 or whatever else. And like, holy cow, this $500 investment has led to all of these amazing things. And that's why like, we do a bunch of those and they don't cost a lot of money. And, you know, we will do these time and time again, largely because we want to create that in our culture. We want to create that inspiration. And again, you just never know where these ideas are going to take you.
I love that. It's creativity and the development as a currency almost. It's that's the return there, that yes, there is something that may have business value, but what we're giving to our people, the skills to become entrepreneurs, to build something, to develop capability, there's residual benefit. And that's
Absolutely.
and I'm sure it's up to the employee, a lot of that. It's up to them to take ownership, to move that forward, to have initiative. And that probably is a very specific DNA of your talent.
Yeah, and to be clear, so I do teach a class in entrepreneurship at PayPal, and I have this kind of 7-step process. And step 1 of the 7 steps is basically it is telling Casey. I'll just tell the whole story because this is one of my favorite stories I love to tell. It's a Warren Buffett story. I'm sure some of the people in your audience have heard. But basically, this I have them do this very exercise, and basically Warren Buffett's pilot goes up to him and says, Warren, you know, I've been flying for you for 10 years. I might want to do more with my life. Warren says, great, write down all those things you want to accomplish. He comes back with a list of 25 things. Warren says, wonderful, you know, go ahead and circle the 5 things. So pilot goes back, circles the top 5 things on that list. He goes back to Warren and says, okay, here we go. So I assume these 5 things are my A priorities and these other 20 things are my B priorities. And Warren says, no, those 5 things now are your to-do list. And those 20 things are your do not do list. And that is a story I tell all the time because look, to build this pressure sensitive yoga mat is going to take a lot of time and effort. And if you've got 20 other priorities in your life, it is never going to happen. And it's not to say that, you know, you're never going to have an opportunity to do this, but you have to wait for that time in your life. And it maybe it's a 6-month window. I mean, I don't know, where you have the time, you have the desire to say, do you know what? Making this crazy yoga mat is going to be the thing that I want to do for the next 6 months. Yes, I got my day job and I got family and I got all this, but it's in my top 5 priorities. And we want to catch you when it's those top 5 priorities. And that's not all the time. So I don't mean to sound like PayPal is a company that says, hey, you got a day job and you got to be doing all these innovation projects all the time. Like, no, like this is your choice as an employee. And we just want to empower you. So when you are at that stage where you're ready, when you're willing, and when you're excited enough to do one of these things, we are here for you. And that's not all 20,000 people at once. If it was all 20,000 at once, me and my partner wouldn't be able to handle it on this thing. It's, but it is for that concerted group who at any one given time is like, yes, this is my priority. Or one of my very, very top priorities to do this. That's when we want to engage the community.
I love it. I love it so much. All right. I want to tap into a couple of the questions here. We've got about 20 minutes left with our time together. So talking about acquisitions, emerging of companies, cultures, etc. One of the questions from Aaron says, what effect, if any, did the acquisition of Venmo have upon PayPal's core innovation practice, new ideas, momentum, energy, ideas, stress?
Stress. Yeah, look, so Venmo was acquired in 2013, and obviously it was much smaller than it is today at that time. Venmo was and even is run fairly independently from many of the other parts of PayPal. A lot of the services we work with, I work with Venmo teams every day. But especially on the consumer, I mean, I don't know the numbers. I probably bet most consumers don't know that it is even a PayPal product, and that's okay. I mean, they don't need to necessarily know every time they're making a PayPal payment. But Venmo brought in a very different culture and a different perspective on how to look at things. One of my favorite stories about innovation at Venmo was the creation of oh my gosh, it's escaping me. The emoji autofill. Is that what it's called? Basically, so when you start typing in, and it'll recommend emojis for you. Oh, emoji recommendations, basically. So that didn't always exist. And so take back about 5 years or so, one of the engineers on the Venmo team got a text from a friend of his, and she said, hey, like, look, I love all these emojis, but you know what? It's a pain in the butt. I got to go through all these screens to find the right emoji. Like, can't you do something about that? An engineer who understood his customer and was completely empowered to do things for his customer, then that late Friday night, basically took it upon himself to say, like, hey, I think I got a solution for this. He worked and coded for probably 5-6 hours that night, sent something to the rest of his team and said, hey, what do you all think about this Venmo, emoji recommendation? What do you think about this? So you start typing in HOU, and then it gives you house and all the variations of house when you start to see those emojis. The team liked it. They're like, yeah, this is cool. This is novel and unique. And I think that this could be something we could do. They iterated, they built off of that. And luckily, we actually had a Venmo release going to the App Store within a few days. And I believe it was 8 days after that initial build, it was already released to our customers. And that is awesome. Like that is something we want to inspire. And frankly, and I tell that story around the rest of PayPal as well, not to say like, hey, Venmo can do this, why can't we? Like one, we're all part of the same family here. People go from company to company and all that. We are all part of the same thing, but like there are certain things that parts of the company are better at than others that we can all learn from. And that wonderful, scrappy, just I see a customer's problem and I'm going to immediately fix it and then iterate with my team and just release and see what happens. That is something that's actually really beautiful. And so I think there are things for us to learn from that in the other pieces of the business. So like, that's why, I get really excited. We have publicly said we're going to spend, as much as $3 billion a year acquiring companies. I get to meet with all the companies when they come into, PayPal, tell them about how we do things at PayPal, but more importantly, talk to them about how they do things, and what we can learn from that. And none of these innovation things are top down pushing our innovation mindset. Like as long as they are empowering their employees and they're focused on serving their customer, I don't care what they do.
Right.
Like this is great. Like, and I don't mean that for any business. It could be for any team within PayPal. Like,
Right.
as long as you're doing that, like, this is a franchise model. Like, as long as, well, I don't know if that would be good for McDonald's. McDonald's pretty much does it the same way everywhere. But like, anyway, but this is very much, you are giving your franchisees full autonomy to not just, I'm going to start putting the bun on the inside and the burgers on the outside at my McDonald's. Like, okay, you're still delivering burgers. So that's cool. It's a different way to look at the franchise model, I guess.
I love that. I mean, you're a curiosity center. You're meant to be an enabler of the people, the how of it. And I think that one of the things that can happen when innovation centers, an observation, when innovation centers inside of organizations become large, to your point, then the ROI becomes in question. So you spend a lot, you have a lot of resource. And I think that can create an unintended consequence of it has to be owned or built here. There's an ownership, we have to have it because there's justification, right? We're all humans. So you want to justify your job or your team. And so to your point about maintaining it small, becoming a catalyst for these things, but enabling the employees, the business units to be able to leverage these how they want, it is a different culture than a lot of organizations with corporate innovation functions see.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is a certain level of pride we have with being small and scrappy, as you probably have been able to gather from this. Look, it does in some ways. Yeah, in some ways, it's definitely harder to get the message across. But like, also, I think it gives opportunity to all of our other employees around the world to kind of step up. So at any given time, well, we might only have 2 people on the innovation team. We have dozens, if not hundreds, of people working on innovation projects. And that's just one of the cool things about it. Like, we know we're all in this thing together. It's way more inclusive to be able to say, like, hey, anybody can do this. In San Jose, pre-COVID, we had one of a financial analyst who was leading a robot project that we were running out of San Jose. And like, not many companies you could have somebody who's in finance, like actually like leading a project, building robots. But that is one of the exciting opportunities you have in this situation. And it's really empowering and inspiring, I think, for employees to just hear those stories.
I love that. All right, I'm gonna take us through these last 12 minutes with a couple rapid fire. I have some questions from the group. So
Cool.
Going back to the beginning, you said, you mentioned the need for random encounters, and it's known that they generate innovation. But how do you and your team trigger that serendipity in a virtual environment, and how do you weave that into your weekly modus operandi?
Yeah, look, candidly, I'm figuring this out now, and I'll try and be rapid fire here. So a few things that I did was I started to just post a weekly video on we have a very robust Slack channel. So, we have this innovator Slack channel with a couple thousand people on it. It is extremely robust. There are great conversations going on all the time, and it's really picked up. And just on that channel, every Sunday night, I will just post 3 minutes of my thoughts. Interesting podcasts I've listened to, whatever it might be for the week, to just kind of start the conversation. And that's what I'm constantly trying to do on there. I know we are also starting this concept of a playground where we just have a marked time once a week where people can come and there's really no agenda. People might bring something to the playground, but it is really meant to just play and inspire. And there's no specific goal. And that's sort of getting to those random encounters. And look, we haven't figured it out. And so I'm all open to suggestions on how to do this, because like, this is going to be more and more the norm. I think going forward, we're looking at much more remote, but we have not figured out how to get those random encounters back anywhere near the same level. My goal is to get it about 80-85% of the same value that we had when we were wholly in person. If we could get to that, then I think that's a huge win. Right now we're at like 40%.
I love that. And I think that could be a whole other round table that we focus on, of hearing what different organizations are doing to foster those organic collisions. All right, another one that we have, new product ideas or an obvious application for quote unquote innovation. How do you encourage, cajole, incentivize innovation around quality control or operational excellence that are potential competitive advantages?
Um, Look, I think this is a big part of just pushing that there is no one definition of innovation, and that innovation means different things to different people. I think I could publicly talk about this, and I'm going to anyway. So, like within our legal team, there was a customer that we were working with. It was a very large customer, and we were trying to sign a contract, and it was something like, I don't know, 60 or 70 pages. And look, this was just dragging on for months. And it was really complex, and there's a lot of work there. And frankly, our legal team took it upon themselves to say, a legal and compliance and policy and all these other teams, just to be clear, they said, how do we get this down to one page? Like, that is a big, bold look to just say, how do you go from 70 to one? Um, but they did it, and it was pain, and it was struggle, and it was compromise. But this was a huge accomplishment, and this is a big innovation opportunity as well. I mean, not only just building new products, but also to just do things like that, because that's massively going to improve the customer experience.
I, one, think that your team should make that a consulting practice and go help every organization ever get contracts down to
Yes.
one page. I would, I think there's a whole BD, focus on that because that's fabulous. But no, I love that push. Another that we have from the group, regardless of industry or company, what's your favorite innovative product and why?
Oh my, what is my, oh gosh, I hate getting asked this question because I'm going to say something and then like an hour from now I'll be like, oh, why did I say that? My
Right, we will give
favorite,
you free reign to say one of them. There may be more.
my favorite innovative product and why? Um, it has got to be what has really improved my life during the quarantine here. Um, Honestly, look, I will say it is probably my it's this guy here. Yeah, it's going to be the yoga mat, but no,
Yeah.
honestly, it's my pedometer, because I mean, especially that technology. If you think about where things, like, it is more life changing than anything else that I have. And look, I know pedometers are not a new thing anymore, and but the syncing and everything else, like, we were asking the question in my house with my kids the other week of, like, if there was a fire, what was the one thing you would grab? And I'm like I've never even wear watches before, but I think it's my Fitbit. So yes. So
I
there you
agree
go.
with that. It's a passive activity you're doing
Yeah,
anyways. It's a data point that then impacts all other points of your day. And it doesn't really require any effort, but once you get the data, it does impact the rest of how you optimize your time.
absolutely. And wait, I'm going to give you one more now that you said that. So the other one I'm going to say is my Uller bed. So what Uller is,
Yeah,
I
tell us
am some,
more.
I am somebody who loves a cold mattress, and it is literally a big water tank that runs to the side, sends water through these tubes that go onto a mattress pad over your mattress, and cools down the mattress. So like on a hot summer day, you just have that cold water going through. It's heavenly.
Cooler,
I sleep so
making
much
water
better.
beds not weird since whatever year they started.
But it's not, yeah, it's not water. It's like so thin. It's like, yes, yes.
Yeah, we see people, they said they're Googling right now. Perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive, like $1,500 or something, I will say.
But
But
then
yeah, but
the sleep, what can you actually put a price tag on, right?
that's exactly right, Casey.
All right. See, people, they're already in here. Sean,
And you can switch sides. So one side is hot, one side is cold. So it has that craftmatic adjustment thing. So
people are saying they're sold right now. You
oh
should
my God. I
you should
should
be an influencer and getting kickbacks right now. There we go.
I think Uller needs to give me some money for that.
They
I
do.
agree.
They do. We have this as proof. You've seen 3 people in here. All right. We're going to end it on this one. So you've described innovation being organic or through acquisition, but how do you and or PayPal look at company partnerships in innovation? So looking at cross company partnerships.
Yeah, look, pre So Visa's headquarters is right up the street in Foster City from where we're at here. And before the Dan Schulman days, I don't think they would have allowed us anywhere near their campus. And probably for good reason. We were not a very good partner. Today, it's completely different. We have absolutely done 180 degrees in many ways on how we've looked at partnerships within PayPal. And that there is a huge ecosystem for us in digital payments. There is a tens of trillions of dollars of opportunity laying in front of us. And this is not winner take all game by any stretch. And so between Visa and MasterCard and Amex and Google and just kind of keep on going down the line, like it is this complex ecosystem, but frankly, all of these people are partners of ours. And we will build products, we innovate together, but like this is all because we've really made the strategic shift to say like, we don't need to own everything. We can be a funding instrument in Google Pay or Samsung Pay or whatever it might be. And that is a perfectly ample example. Sorry if you hear rattling in the background. I don't
I
know
hope
what
it's a rain stick. I hope we're getting like a dance over on the side. I'm loving this. This is by far
yeah.
the most lively interview we've had yet.
I'm glad to hear that. I'll just bring my daughter on next time. Maybe you can interview her directly, and I'll make the noise in the background.
You get off the screen, she comes in. It's great.
Exactly. But I think that's been just key to our partnership strategy, that we build up all of these experiences, and then because we have these deep relations, because we're not trying to take the whole thing, it lets so many more opportunities for us to be able to build directly with these partners.
I love that. It's identifying what is the bigger goal that we could all have a piece of. We're all going to have our unique customer and value proposition, right? We're going to know our customers better. We're going to do some of that, competitive advantage, but we don't all have to solve singular problems that are only going to get us a fraction of the way there.
100%.
Awesome. All right. With 2 minutes left, because I am mindful of everybody's calendars being crazy, we did have one other question, but for sake of time, I'm going to move us forward, and maybe this is a good fodder for the next round. Mike, thank you for joining us today. It has been fast and furious, but we've covered a lot of ground in an hour.
Always a pleasure, Casey. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. And for the rest of you on the line, this is going to be shared out. We post these the week of, every time we host a speaker. Coming up on September 15th, I'm very excited. We have Soon-Mi Kim. She is the Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leader and EVP at Porter Novelis. We're going to be having her join us talking about what diversity and inclusion looks like at a macro level, but also within innovation. What is the benefit and how do we see it actually making business outcomes better? So thank you, Mike. Thank you for everyone on the line. It was, I think, 30 plus lovely people, and we'll see you next time. Take care.